In this video, we will be discussing creating solids using the subtract command. If you'd like to follow along with this video, please open the file creating solids using subtract.dwg located in the working files folder as discussed in the working with this dataset video. You use the subtract command to remove material from a solid based on the volume of other intersecting solids. During the operation of the command, you define two separate selection sets of solid models. The first set of selected solid models are the ones you want to keep. The second set of solids are the ones you want to subtract from the first set. Upon completion of the command, the first set of selected solids are unioned together, and then the second set of solids are subtracted from the first set. All the selected solid models are consumed into that new composite solid. The solids that were subtracted from the first set are no longer available for future Boolean operations. Let's draw some objects that we will use to subtract out to complete our solid models. Firstly, let's check our settings. Verify that you have dynamic input turned on, polar tracking turned on, O tracking turned on, O snap turned on, and you have endpoint, midpoint, center, intersection, and extension. Also make sure that you have 3D O snap turned on, and you have vertex, midpoint and edge, and center of face. So first, let's go ahead and set our layer to m-obj1, and let's go ahead and start the cylinder command from the modeling panel. We'll go ahead and snap to the center of the bottom part over here, and then we'll define a radius of 2, press enter, and then do a shift right click and snap to the quadrant of this circle here. Now we're ready to subtract. Let's go ahead and start the subtract command in the solid editing panel, and then we have the subtract command right here. So remember, you're making two selection sets. The first set are the objects you want to keep. The second set are the objects that will be taken away from the first set. So we want to keep this object here, and then press enter or right click to complete that selection set. And carefully select the objects by making sure that you hover and highlight the object that you want to subtract from the first selection set. We'll go ahead and make sure we get this object here, and then press enter, and there is our completed composite model. Next, let's go ahead and draw some additional primitive objects to complete this 3D solid composite model. We'll change our layer to m-obj2 to just see a difference in the colors, and we'll go ahead and start the cylinder command. First, shift right click and snap to the center of the bottom here. And for the radius here, we want a radius of 0.55 and then press enter. And then for the height, you can simply snap to the 3D center of this object. That's good enough to get us the volume that we want to subtract out. Next, we need a slot that goes through here. We know the distance it's supposed to go, but now we need to move the UCS to draw in the plane that's going to push that slot into the 3D solid. We'll simply select the UCS and pick the square blue grip. And then hover, and when you get to the midpoint of this object here, you'll notice it automatically rotates to the 3D solid, and then left click. Verify you have the UCS icon on the face of that 3D solid. Let's go ahead and start the box command, and what we want to do here is we need to be a certain distance off the center, so we can do so very easily using O tracking. Acquire but do not click the 3D midpoint. And then move your cursor polar tracking this way, and type a distance in of 0.55. Press enter. That starts the 3D solid 0.55 units over that way there. Now we want to define the length of this cube, so we'll go ahead and click length. Notice how ortholock sometimes kicks in. Just toggle it back to polar tracking and make sure you lock your polar tracking this way here. Let's define a distance of 1.125 and press enter. Now we need to define the height, and that's very simple because all we have to do is simply snap to the endpoint of this 3D vertex. Now we're defining the height of the box. For this one, we can simply snap to the 3D vertex here, and there is our completed box. We now have the volumes that we want to subtract, so we can start the subtract command. Pick the outer object first and right-click or enter. Then pick your cylinder and your box, press enter, and there is our completed design. As you can see, very simply drawing some primitive objects, rotating the UCS icon, you can get the composite models you need to.